Hi, everybody. Welcome to our citators class, where we're going to be talking about Shepards and key cite and a little bit about CALR. So, citators, why do we need them? Citators, we have cases, right? We have case law that is part of our legal system. And cases are what we call precedent or can be precedent. So if you have a case that is authority on you, there's different levels of precedent or authority. Mandatory authority is what is precedent, legal authority, which a court must follow. So if there is a Supreme Court, US Supreme Court decision, all courts cannot not follow it. So they must follow it. So things like a statute in your jurisdiction. So in Illinois, we have to follow Illinois statutes. Or if there is a decision of a higher court in my jurisdiction on the same issue, those are mandatory authorities. Those are things that a court has to follow. Everything else, well, there's other courts or other cases, and those are called persuasive authority outside of your jurisdiction. A lower court or a court of the same level, that would be legal authority, which a court may follow, but it is not precedent. Okay, so authority of a case may weaken over time. Okay, so a case is decided and it's super strong and nobody's ever said anything bad about it. But over time, things can happen. Okay, so one thing that could happen is the disposition of the case in a future permutation of that case. So, if I have an appellate court case and it goes to the Illinois Supreme Court, the Illinois Supreme Court can do things to that case. It can affirm the result and then it agrees with the result below. So then, okay, then the result of that appellate court case is still good law. However, if it does something negative, like it reverses it, or reverse and remand, or modifies, it partially changes the result, then that case is no longer precedent, right? So that actually in that chain of cases itself, it's no longer good law. Subsequent cases also can talk badly about your case. The worst one you can get there is if it has been overruled by a future case. But you can also have a milder negative implications about your case. A future case can question it or limit it, or it can distinguish it. There's some others. But so these subsequent cases may weaken the precedential value of your case over time. So if you're citing it in your legal brief, opposing attorney will say, oh, yeah, well, yeah, that's technically still good law, but so many other cases have questioned it that maybe this court shouldn't consider it anymore. Okay, so it's not always so great to rely on cases that have been weakened over time by future cases. So how do we find out if our case has been weakened or totally no longer valid? Don't be like Marcia. So that's when you go to that video that I have under the PowerPoint from Marcia Clark. So pause me and put it on. Okay, so hopefully you watched it. But in that instance, you'll see that whoever wrote that brief for Marcia did not Shepardize that case and did not know that it applied in a criminal context. And what I love about that little clip is it wasn't any of the attorneys who found out that this case didn't apply. It was the judge's law clerks. So they were law students, students like you who took the time to Shepardize those cases and found out that her claim wasn't valid. So it's pretty tough to be called out by a judge. And he said, motions without merit or, frivolous motions can be the subject of sanction. So he's just kind of saying, you're doing a bad job and don't do it anymore. So it's pretty bad to be called out like that. So we have to use tools called legal citators. Okay, legal citators are the resource that you consult to find out if the case that you're relying on in your brief or memo or whatever document you're writing, to make sure that the cases are still good law. Okay, so after a case is decided, things might happen. A higher court may overrule, reverse, vacate, or modify the decision of this particular case, or a court in a subsequent case may cite the case and negatively affect its precedential value, or positively affect its precedential value for that matter. So after you complete your research, you must go to a legal citator to make sure that the cases that you're relying on are still good law. If not, you could be it's malpractice basically to not do that. The other reason you can use a legal citator is to expand your research and find cases on similar issues. So if you are looking at cases that cite to your case, presumably they will be in the same topic and legal area, and that helps you further your research. Okay, so our research is never complete until we consult a citator to find out whether a case or a statutes are still good law. As a subsequent case overruled or modified it, has something in the chain of case reversed it or vacated it, have statutes been either amended or held unconstitutional by a court. Oh, there it is. And then Shepard's is kind of the name brand citator. Shepard's was the original one. It's the only one that's available in book form, and you will look at that in your lab this week in the book form. So Shepard's is a citator. And so when I am reading a case, say I pulled out all of those cases that are cited in the case. Okay, I'm a Shepard's editor. I work for Shepard. So I pull out all the cases that are cited inside a case, and I look to it and I say, how does this case treat the case that I have pulled out? Okay, is it just, merely it's just cited it? Does it change? Does it question it? Does it modify it? Does it does it follow it? So how does it, how does it treat it? And we'll talk about the Shepard's treatments in a second. So that's what they're called, these little treatments. Does the citing case treat the case you are Shepardizing in a positive, negative, or neutral manner? And then Shepard's also gives you the appellate history of the case as it worked its way through the court system. Okay, so that makes sense because you want to see if it happened actually in the chain of the case that you're looking at. Okay, so we use it to check to see if our case is still valid. We call it Shepardizing. It is a verb. The case I am Shepardizing, we call that cited authority because we are citing that case. The new law that appears so that's what it has been cited. And anything that is citing to it, we call that citing authority. Okay, so who was Shepard? Okay, so Shepard's was a long time ago, 1873. Frank Shepard was a door-to-door book salesman who sold case reporters. And he came up with this great idea that said, if I, in my case reporters, talk about how this case has been cited later to see if it was still good law, that's going to make my books, more saleable, more marketable. So here you see this Sheldon versus Newton, and then these are the other future cases that it was cited in, and then you could go look it up to see how it was treated. Okay, so they had these little, almost, it was gummed perforated sheets. What is that? It's like a Post-it note. And so he would go through and add this. And it became a little too cumbersome, so he came up with his own book, which he called Shepard Citations. So that is where Shepard's came from. Now, this is what it looks like now. This is a photo of California Shepard's. So you have your bound volume, Then you have a soft cover update. Then you have another soft cover shorter update. And then ultimately, these become bound in a new edition. But you have to, when you're consulting your Shepards, you start with the bound volume, and then you have to make sure you update with these supplements that come out, because cases are coming out every day. So you have to make sure that these newer cases are not negatively impacting the case you want to cite. Oh, FYI, what we'll have in our lab, or what we have in the library, they just stopped paying to update it, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. So we just do it as an exercise and not for realsies. Okay, so if somebody says Shepardizing, it's the verb that refers to the process of consulting a Shepard's citator to see if the case what has happened to it. 2 important purposes: case validation. Is your case still good law? And 2, we're using it to find additional relevant authorities if we want to further our research. So you can Shepardize cases, statutes, constitutions, administrative regs, law reviews, all these things. We're going to concentrate in this class on Shepardizing cases. So just like digests, you want to make sure that you're Shepardizing, your Shepard's book corresponds to the reporter or the cases that you're looking at. Okay, so you have the, Shepard's United States citations goes with the Supreme Court. Then there's federal citations, and then you have your state and regional reporters. Technically, because you don't know how it's cited in a case, you should Shepardize looking at both the official reporter and the parallel citations. I'm not really worried about that, but if you're doing it in real life in the book, you should do that. Okay, so this is what it looks like in print. All right, so if I want to cite to this case Christensen, make sure you make this big so you can see it. Christensen versus Superior Court, which is 180 Pacific Reporter. Oh no, it's 820 Pacific 2nd, page 181. These are then, you see here, all the cases, the cites of all the cases that have cited to Christensen Superior Court, Christensen versus Superior Court of LA. Okay, so you'll see here the first 2 things, they're in parentheses. The ones in parentheses are parallel citations. So it's the same case, right? So they're just, different citations to the same case. Okay, then you see some of them are just cites, and some of them have a little letter here. And make sure you have this looking at your whole screen, because it'll be small if you haven't expanded this. Okay, so this one says F, so that means it has been followed. Christensen this case follows Christensen. And you'll even see after the 2D, there's a little number. I'm sorry, it's not that clear, but that is the head note that it is talking about when it's following it. Okay, J means it appears in a dissenting opinion. Followed. J followed. And here's a D. That means it's distinguished. Distinguished means it doesn't follow this case. It says the facts are different. So they're not using the law in this case. Explained is E. So here, if I was Shepardizing this to find out if my case was still good law, I would look at those little codes, boom, 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 and we'll learn what those codes mean. And I look for anything that's a negative code, and this one sticks out to me. So I would pull out 984 F second 1036 and see, how is it distinguishing my case? Is it something relevant to me? Are the facts that it's distinguishing on the facts of my case? So then if it's the same, then it won't apply. So that's kind of the short process of Shepardizing. Okay, so I'm a Shepard's editor again. I read through an opinion. I compile a list of all the cases. I give a treatment code for all of those cases. So how does this opinion affect the precedential value of that list of cases that I pulled out? If it's positive, it might be followed, approved. Yeah, that could be your treatment code. Negatively, criticized, limited, questioned, overruled. And maybe for neutral, it would be cited or explained. That's another neutral code. And then the distinguished means that its case is not applied because the facts are different. No, same slide. Deja vu. So there's two different kinds of information in the Shepards. You have the history of your case, and you have the treatments. Right. So the history of the case is that's the appellate history of the case that I'm Shepardizing. What happened after this case? Did it go to the Supreme Court? Was it, cert granted or something like that? Okay. And then you have the subsequent cases with the treatment codes. All right. So you'll have parallel cites. Remember, we saw that in the parentheses. The cites to the same case up or down the chain of appeal. Cites to all cases that cite or discuss your citation. And then the treatment codes, the description of how other cases treat the citation. And then they also have secondary sources. Okay, so for your case history, prior and subsequent decisions of this particular case, right? A case goes from the trial court to the first appellate court, maybe to the Supreme Court. Okay, so then you know that you want to see what has happened to this case in its history. Our Shepard's treatments, let me get to Hamy's here. No, I want to be at 216. Here they are. Okay, so this is the part, the part up top would be abbreviations in the history of the case. So CC means it's a connected case. M means it was modified. So on appeal, this case that I am Shepardizing has been modified, reversed. Obviously, that's bad. If it's about a statute, that capital S means it's superseded. This is the same case for the lower case. Rehearing denied, rehearing dismissed, vacated. Okay, so in the history of the case, things that are bad would be the V, the capital S, the R, the M. Okay, if you see any of those codes, you know that that's bad. Okay, and then these are the treatment codes for subsequent cases that have cited to the case I'm Shepardizing. Criticized, bad. Distinguished, mildly bad. Explained, good. Followed, good. Harmonized, I would look at because they're somehow reconciling the laws, so it might give you something of interest. J just means it appears in a dissenting opinion. Limited, that's negative. Overruled, obviously, that is negative as well. So those are all the treatments. Now for our quiz this week, I'm going to be quizzing you on what those treatments are. So I'm going to give you a treatment code. You're going to have to tell me what it means. 218. They tell you what to look at for. Why does it jump so far? 218. Where is this? Point to remember. Yeah, so these are. No. That's for citing something. Okay. Well. I kind of talked to you about the bad ones. Oh, here they are. Stop if you see any of these. Overruled, hearing granted. That means that a higher court is hearing this case. criticized, questioned, reversed, superseded, vacated. Modified, I would also stop at too. Abrogated is another one. So that's just when you talk about negative treatments. These are really badly negative treatments. Okay, so negative history abbreviations like reversed and vacated, those are bad. And then the negative treatment abbreviations are there as well. Okay, Shepard's gives the head note number that's discussed. We saw that in an earlier slide. Parallel citations, those are in parentheses. And then I would like to go to my book to kind of show you how it, all right, so are we on? Okay, so this is another one that you can look at in the book. Okay, so this is Betts versus Brady. So the citation in the United States Reporter would be volume 316, page 455. Okay, volume 316, 455. So I'm looking in my Shepard's book, volume 316 of the U.S. Reports, page 455, which is Betts versus Brady. Okay, in the parens, parallel citations. Okay, so it's the exact same text of the case, just in a different book. Okay, S means it's part of the same case. Just this is probably like a rehearing denied or something like that. Okay, remember J, dissenting opinion. And if there's nothing, it just means it's cited. This C here, criticized, that's bad. D, distinguished. Q, questioned. And then you can, it goes on forever here. There's probably more pages after that. But you have to scan through and look for the bad treatment codes. Now it should, this one I can't see footnotes, head notes. And that's LED 2D, so that's why that's kind of typed over each other. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so you first go through the main volume, like I showed you in that picture, in the picture of it, then the cumulative supplement, then your annual supplement, and then these pamphlet type updates, just little paperbacks. Okay, so how does Betts versus Brady been treated? There's a lot positive, but then we really, if I'm Shepardizing this case to find out whether it's still good law, I'm going to write down this one or highlight that one, this one, questioned, questioned, questioned. There's a lot of things. Oh, look at that. Boom. Overruled. I see an overruled, so I really can't cite it if it's been overruled. So those are the things you're looking at when you are trying to Shepardize a case. Okay, so if you're doing it online, you do Shepard's is on Lexis, KeyCite is on Westlaw. It's something that you, as a paralegal, if you're working in any kind of litigation practice, cite checking is a common task, right? Checking if it's proper citation form. Is this in Blue Book? Is the site actually, if you pull up that site, is that actually where the case is? Is the authority valid, right? You're using Shepard's or another citator to check to see if it's still good law. You check to see what they're citing it for. Does that case or statute really say that? If there's a quote, you're getting the pages that that the quote appears, and make sure that the quotes are accurate. Now, when we get to Lexis and Westlaw in CALR, there are tools that help you with that. You can upload a document, and it can help you through those things. So If you are Shepardizing, you get your citation, you pull the relevant Shepard's volumes, including the supplements and advanced sheet, find your authority in Shepard's, then you look for those bad codes, and then you check your citation and supplements and advanced sheets, you interpret your findings, you might have to go pull other cases to see what they say. And you're supposed to be repeating this process with parallel cites. You can also Shepardize statutes. Has the statute been repealed, amended, revised, or held unconstitutional? We don't have those books in Harper, but I'll learn you how to do that in CALR. Remember that our quiz next week is going to be on these Shepard's abbreviations and what they mean. Okay, I guess now we're on computer-assisted legal research. Again, we're going to hopefully you take that class in the summer and learn it. The two main ones are Westlaw and Lexis. Those are our paid databases, and they are both very, very good. I used to work for Lexis, so I can tell you all the reasons why it's better, but that was because I was a salesperson for Lexis. So they all have primary law for federal and all 50 states, and they're all very promptly updated and current, and they're integrated with their citators, Shepard's and KeyCite. They have secondary sources, they have treatises, they have form books, they have news, they have legal periodicals. They got a lot of stuff. They are usually full text. These two are full text searchable. You choose the source. Say I want to look at Illinois state cases, then I formulate my search, and it pulls up all the cases that match that search. And I can browse my results, I can modify my search and deliver my documents either by printing, downloading, emailing, all sorts of ways to deliver your results. We'll learn this in the summer when you come and take my class in the summer, and the summer class will be fully online. KeyCite, so for your homework this week, you're going to do part of it in the lab, the part where we actually have to look at the books. But then we're going to do the rest on Westlaw. So if I go to the Harper College library, and I could just go in there, and I'm going to choose the databases here. And get to W, Westlaw. You have to sign in using your Harper account. Okay, so for key citing, all you're going to do is type in KC and your site. Do I have a practice site I was going to use here? Of course not. Here, let me try just pulling up a random site from the book. KC 542 US 1. Okay, so key site and then the site. Not the whole Blue Book site, just your reporter volume, your reporter name, and the page. All right, so KeyCite gives us some nice visual clues. So if I see this red flag, I know that something bad has happened. Okay. It's abrogated. So it means it's no longer good law. Okay. So I have 102 cases that treat it negatively. So this is no longer good law if I'm Shepardizing it. I mean, key citing it. But so that's how, so you use that and you go to the negative citing references and you look for the negative treatment. You can also, if you're using this, the history of the case, if I want to see what happened in the chain of this case, how it got to the Supreme Court and or what happened afterwards, I go to the history tab. And in the history tab, this is my case. This is everything that happened before. And nothing important happened after because rehearing was denied. So we don't have to worry about something in the case history to negatively impact its precedential value. We already have something that abrogates it. So if I'm using this to further my research, find this is obviously not a great case because it's got my big red flag on it. I'm going to go to citing references. And in citing references, I just want to look at cases because that's what I need help with. And then in the cases, I can do all sorts of fun things. I can narrow it by what kind of court. Say I only want federal court. I can narrow it by my topic. It's taking a second. Say I'm only interested in constitutional law. And then I say, well, I only want one with negative. Okay. Constitutional law. And I can say I only want to look at those with negative treatment, or I can hide the negative. I want cases that actually kind of follow that law. So I can make those decisions. So that's what you're going to do in your homework. You're going to go on Westlaw, type in, I think you have 8 of them that you have to do. Key cite, KC, and the cite. And then there's questions that I'm asking. How many cases cite to it, or what are the negative treatments, things like that. So that is key cite. Other paid databases besides Lexis and Westlaw, we have Fastcase. Fastcase is a nice source. It's primary law. So you have cases and statutes and codes and administrative stuff and things like that. But if you are a member of the Illinois State Bar Association or someone in your firm is, you have free access to Fastcase. So that's pretty good. You don't have to buy another subscription. They have something similar. They have a citator. I can't remember its name right now, but they have something that works as a citator for you. Bloomberg Law is another, has primary law. And then they have a lot of governmental and secondary sources related to corporate and business law. We have free internet searching, which we've worked on a little bit, like Google Scholar and government sites. I would avoid, for our legal research, doing law firm sites or FindLaw. Don't do that for legal research. And that's it for today. All right, I will see you in our lab, and have a great one.